other than through Common Ground and the relationships I've built. It really is good work in these times in which we live. Give me reason to still remember and reflect on it. In many ways, those experiences prepared me to be who I am now. I believe in bridge building across differences. When I was young, as I said to you, as a 4-year-old, playing with Catherine and Wesley and Preston, I just had fun. That was it. And they didn't treat me differently. Children learn hate. These are all children who were 3 and 4 years old at the time. And my mom was liked by all of the people whose homes she cleaned. So it was comfortable for me. And I could then compare and contrast, if you know what I mean. I could see what they had and what we may not have had, but we had food on the table. So I didn't even judge that. And like I said to you, I was happy to get those hand-me-down books and other things, but mostly the books. Because the books told me that I wanted to have what they had, but I didn't know why I didn't have it. I don't think children get that deep in their thoughts. I think they want to have fun and they want to feel comfortable. They want to feel that no one's going to hurt them. So I grew up in Richmond, Virginia. I was born there in 1949 at a segregated hospital, St. Philip, which soon became the Medical College of Virginia. I attended segregated schools from elementary through high. Then I went to a historically Black college in Richmond. I had wanted to move to France because as I got older, I was more in touch with how things were separate and not equal. I was an artist. I was an artist as long as I knew myself. I was a visual artist, and I wanted to move to France and study art. I think the artist self in me is what helps me to embrace across differences, because art is how you think and feel. It doesn't have to match anything. It just is. And art is beautiful. Even if people interpret a certain painting a certain way, someone else will see beauty in it. And positivity is seeing beauty in things. I don't go to the negative polarity. So my Richmond experience, as I mentioned, I went to Virginia Union. I chose sociology as a major because since I couldn't study art because they didn't have art as a major, I decided I'd major in something that had me connected to people. And so I must have had an advisor, though I don't remember what sociology was involving. And so I did that. And while at Virginia Union, my last year, I had the opportunity to participate in a Native American seminar. And so I traveled to Durango, Colorado, our group, to Fort Lewis College, and we studied Hopi and Navajo cultures. And while there, and noticing how the Indian students were treated on the college campus, I began to see racism. I hadn't seen it before because I was in the protective environment of a Black community and a Black school system. And then I went to a historically Black college. But going to Durango, Colorado, and seeing how the security in particular were treating kids who were students there, that was really new to me. And so perhaps that's what influenced also my decision when I got this scholarship to attend graduate school at Virginia Commonwealth University School of Social Work. Maybe all of those factors, all of my life experiences helped me to choose my discipline, which was community organization and planning. I wanted to build bridges, as I mentioned, across differences, and I knew that meant I had to go into communities. And then I looked at what's a community. A community is people sharing a common belief. A community is different from a neighborhood. You can live in close proximity, but not have a common belief. So I wanted to be in the position to help people to see commonalities rather than differences. While I was in the School of Social Work, my second year field placement was in Surry County, Virginia, which was a rural community of a little bit over 5,000 people. I had no interest in going to a rural community because I knew enough about the politics of the situation that it could be uncomfortable for me. That particular community was very much a part of the Byrd machinery. Harry Byrd was a segregationist, and they still had, although schools were supposed to be integrated, they still had private academies, and they had deplorable schools. That's what I noticed when I first arrived, the first day, how deplorable the Black schools were. And my supervisor was Charlie Agel, and Charlie Agel had worked in the Bobby Kennedy administration, so I was in good hands. hands. And I told him the first day when we did the tour that I wanted to do something. I wanted to get some money, revenue sharing money if possible, that would go into some kind of recreational program for the kids. Because I learned very early too that they were loitering around the one county store and accused of being delinquent because the whites did not want them loitering. They could have influenced whether they got traffic or not. And so I did the research. I researched all of the sectors that could be responsible for either opposing it or accepting it. And then the word got back to the School of Social Work, to the person who was the supervisor of all of the social work students. She told me that a man had said I was trying to incite a riot because I had recruited welfare mothers. He said welfare rights mothers to be a part of what I was doing. He didn't know what I was doing. I was just doing something, and I had included welfare mothers. Well, the welfare mothers were the ones whose children were impacted by the racism because they were poor mothers and they were single parents. I didn't really know what welfare rights was, to be honest with you. And this man was Black, so that made it really hard for me that a Black person would try to get me kicked out of my placement in my last year of my master's program. And so I was staying at the time with Gerald and Camille Poindexter, and Gerald was the county attorney and Camille was a lawyer in Richmond. And I told them what had happened, and they said, go to the meeting, tell them what you're doing. That's all you have to do. He needs to know what you're doing, and do it in a crowd so everybody can hear it. And so I went to his meeting. He had probably over 100 people at the meeting. This was a multicultural meeting of people who wanted to be inclusive. And I told them what I was doing. I was a second-year student at BCU. I came here. I saw the conditions of the schools that the Black kids attended, and I wanted to make a difference. I wanted it to be equal for all kids. So I wanted to do the research and submit a proposal to the Board of Supervisors for some money. I would be leaving. I wouldn't see the results of my work, but it was just important to do the work. And so I did. I submitted the proposal. I moved to Philadelphia, and I got a letter from Jolly and said that this was a lot of money back then, that the Board of Supervisors approved $12,500 in revenue sharing to start this recreation program. And I just cried. I had crying moments. And so I never saw the results, but they had scattered sites in the 3 towns. So a friend of mine who lives in Surrey County told me she was in a meeting, and she said that they were talking about this social work student who had come into the county and who had really transformed the lives for these Black kids in this county, because she had done the work of putting together the research and submitting a proposal for revenue sharing for the beginning of a program, a scattered sites approach in the 3 towns. And they just wondered what she was doing now. So that was really rewarding. The work I did was supposed to be done even with the situation with the man trying to kick me out of the county, which made me come to the realization that when you are a change agent, you are really not doing the status quo. You're being a disruptor. Even if it's good change, you're still being a disruptor. I never really sit down and say, I'm going to disrupt something. That's just not who I am, because I'm common ground. I don't talk disruptor, but I guess change upsets some people. I moved to Adams County, Pennsylvania in 2017 officially. I had moved here periodically. I was staying here in 2016, but I sold my house and moved here permanently in 2017 through the marriage to my husband. And this was very different. Okay, I had worked in rural communities. I had done work through the National Council of Negro Women, where our programs were in rural communities. And I'd done the field work in Surrey County, but I had never taken up permanent residence in a rural community. When I moved to Adams County, I noticed that there were very many signs for President Trump. And some of those signs were also hateful toward the then President Biden. So it concerned me that I was coming to an area where I might not belong, not because I could not belong, but because people would not treat me in a way that made me feel I belonged. I made those assumptions. And I would be invited to meetings because the friends I built, the friendships I built were primarily with women. We were looking at making our facility, our barn, an events venue. And so lots of people were coming to sell advertising, or just they heard about me. It's a small community. They heard about me. And the word out was that I was really interesting in a positive way. I'd say that, that I was engaging, that, you'll learn so much from her. Those are the kinds of things I was learning that the women were saying. And so I met lots of women. And they were telling people I should serve on their boards, or they were saying, do you know Patricia? And so I joined the Rotary because I wanted to join something local to here would help us to facilitate what we wanted to do with the barn. So it was really interesting. They were nice, but I was the only one. And so I did notice very often when I went into a space, I was the only Black person in the space. And because I also was not native born, I've been told that unless you are born here, even if you're white, unless you're born here, you're never going to be the same as a person who was born here. So that's kind of like a little bit of a divisive thing. And so I built some bridges here by being in spaces where I did not belong. And I'm not saying someone said no Black people allowed, but it's just the nature of what it is. It's a small community. It's not many Black people statistically here. And here I am. And then I'm here and I'm me. I'm coming in and I'm alive. And then I have ideas. I'm saying, we can do blah, 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 blah. Well, one of the things I said was, I am not a placeholder. If you want me on your board, you have to give me things to do. I say things that I know people are thinking. Now, I don't know if that's right or wrong, but I diffuse it because I said, I'm not mad at anybody. I'm not mad at anybody because of their beliefs. I don't give energy to that. But I'm talking about me. If I'm going to donate time, then use me as you would use someone who looks like you. Because my portfolio is very strong, not just here, but beyond country borders. And it was always related to building bridges. So I'm saying all that to say that I have gotten in the position of being able to do the research that I mentioned to you previously. And I'm on 2 boards now, 3 boards that I'm very much involved with. One is the Adams County Community Foundation Board, and one is the Gettysburg Hospital Foundation Board, and one is the WellSpan Regional Board. So all of that is to say, all of those 3 boards are important to me. One is responsible for the disbursement of funds for all of these wonderful charities that exist here and nonprofits. One is the local hospital board, and that gives me some insights for them relative to health disparities. And one is the regional board, which is a governance board for WellSpan. So with all of that, I got off of some boards because I didn't feel they were aligning with my wanting to be actively engaged. When I met Tracy Potts, I got excited because I was familiar with her from Network News in Washington. And she's the one who got me involved with Common Ground. And anything that Tracy wants me to be a part of, I know it's the right place to be. When I came to your first meeting, I said, oh my God, they're doing amazing work. This resonates with my whole portfolio from the time I was in grad school to now, because everything you're doing is built from my perspective, is building bridges across differences and finding common ground. There is always something that we can agree on. When I look at the people I have met that I would have never met other than through Common Ground and the relationships I've built, it really is good work in these times in which we live. Because I build bridges across differences, I get a host of opinions from a host of different audiences and cultures. And that gives me a pipeline to give people some key insights and give them the comfort levels of building those connections that they would have otherwise not built. I'm involved with a group of women now, and that's just what that is I've even brought in women from other states to be a part of this group, because all of us together can make a whole in terms of this kind of transformation that's needed, that we take it back to our networks, our influencers, our relatives. We give them more than what they know. And I think that's the key. The other piece is planning with, not for. And I think that's something that Common Ground offers. It offers you an opportunity to plan with people from diverse backgrounds. And I'm assuming that those who may have opposing views than I would go to their networks and see and help them to see things a little bit differently because they've had the influence of myself or any other people of color who are involved with Common Ground.